Joined now by Independent Political Commentator Thabo Shole-Mashao. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. When President Cyril Ramaphosa was announced as president, just after 11 p.m. last night, the House burst into song. It was of course, an unsurprising celebration, wasn't it?
Indeed. I think the writing was on the wall. Good evening, Paul, and good evening to your viewers as well. I think that it was no surprise at all. The writing was on the wall. The DA had been bold and forthright throughout the weeks, or the days rather, leading to the ultimate election of President Ramaphosa, that they will stand behind the ANC. And a few hours before that, I think it was just a couple of hours before that, John Steenhuisen, the DA leader, it was as though he was giving the State of the Nation address when he made that announcement that they had agreed with the ANC to work together, and that the framework agreement is the first phase to a couple of more to come on the details. So indeed.
With all we've seen, one could say that South Africa's politicians have shown an incredible amount of maturity during this process, which of course brings us to the question about why did the ANC go with the DA, which both they and their allies have criticized as retrogressive and representative of the older order, instead of going with the EFF. What are your views on that?
It is not surprising, again, why people would characterize this GNU or this marriage in that form, simply because the DA, for one, as we all know, Mpo, is not very keen on expanding the NSFAS pool as far as assisting students or potential students to accessing higher education. If anything else, it wants the scheme to be turned into loans, and it wants to reduce the number of people dependent on that. It's not, again, the social grant system, the Israeli-Palestinian matter, again, underway. And I can mention 10,000 things, including the redress legislation that the DA is definitely opposed to. So when people think it's regressive, you would wonder if the DA does not read the preamble of the Constitution when it says that we recognize the imbalances of the past. So if there are imbalances that we recognize, it simply means that we have to correct those imbalances.
Yeah.
There are color blindness as well to race being a very serious issue in South Africa. So it's not doing itself much favors, but the West, it's the ANC that gets into this marriage, because it's going to be judged harshly in the next election.
More so because we know, as you make mention of some of the divisions, the DA and the ANC divided enormously with the different ideologies and the history.
Yeah.
But what joins them? More so if we look at the state of South Africa's economy, it needs to improve.
And improve it will. I think what is quite unfortunate, if I were to be blunt, is the impression that it's only the DA getting married to the ANC that will improve our economy. So it suggests that any other party that went into bed, so to speak, with the ANC would not make any improvement on the economy. And it is somehow unfortunate that in 2024, those narratives still find resonance in the broader discourse that we are having. So the DA has got the monopoly on fixing the economy of South Africa, and no one else can do that.
What broadens, if you don't mind me just interrupting you, Thabo, what do you think broadens such a narrative? You say it's unfortunate. We know the EFF, UDM, ATM and Al-Jamaa and others organized themselves in what they had called the Progressive Caucus, a counter to the National Unity Government, and perhaps the start of what some have said would be a new style of disruptive politicking.
Well, the progressive, I think firstly that was temporary. It was to deal strategically or tactically with the issues at hand, which were included the voting of the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, and the President's position. I think that was tactical and it was temporal. But moving forward, it simply means that those groupings also a marriage of convenience, however noble they may want us to believe they are their connection to be. It's just a marriage of convenience with those progressive entities. They have their own individual preferences. This was just the case of my enemy's enemy is my friend. And that usually creates problems, because when you remove the enemy, what brings us together?
Yeah. As we try and make sense about the significance of the votes, we know that President Cyril Ramaphosa said that it's not so much in the result of the vote that was delivered, but more about the historical meaning and the moment that is truly significant. He also spoke about how it represents something bigger, hope, inclusivity. How important is such a focus at a time such as this, when the country needs to tackle so many challenges?
I think it's the rainbow language that the president loves to throw into the public every now and then and insert into the space. And I think we are doing well. That's not where the problem is. Working together, being a nation that, I mean, you don't see people often fighting and in massive groups. Of course, there are racial issues that have to be dealt with decisively. But on the broader spectrum, you and I and Paul, when we go to work with different people, with people from different racial groupings, different religions, and we don't just spend our 8 hours at work fighting because this person is white or black. So I think the president missed a big opportunity to express, number one, regret for his dismal performance at the polls, but also for throwing South Africa into a speculative era that we find ourselves in, instability and conjuncture that has been in our society, because we don't know what is happening, who is talking to who, and they've been very ambiguous. But again, the proof on Paul will be on, I think, on Thursday when he announces the cabinet. We will be very, very clear to what extent these talks have gone, who becomes the deputy president, ministerial positions, the deputy ministerial positions, who takes those, and that will tell us directly, because those mostly are in the hands of the president directly and not a broader forum, even though he has to consult with alliance partners, with the ANC, the NEC members, and whoever else that he needs to speak to. But that will be on his name, just like the 40% was in his name.
What we do understand is that the ANC would want to retain finance, the security cluster ministries like police, defense, state security and home affairs, and their related parliamentary committee chairpersons. But no deal, of course, has been established yet. What would be the significance of holding on to the likes of finance, police, and so forth?
Sure. I mean, there are two things that we need to distinguish very quickly. The portfolio committees in Parliament and the executive positions that the president will do on the arm of the executive. So in Parliament, they would definitely want to hold on to the ethics committee. They would want the finance committee to be theirs, and the rules committee as well to belong to the ANC. Because those are very strategic. As far as scope is concerned, it's always been tradition that it's given to a member of the opposition party. We saw Nkululeko Hlengwa, who occupied that position, and prior to that it was Themba Godi. And so those, but I think the ones that I've mentioned would be in Parliament, the ones that they would want to hold on to. As far as executive positions, Home Affairs, very funny issue. The ANC would want to hold on. International relations, they've been doing very, very well, definitely. But I think the ones that they would want to give away, science and technology, and with all respect to science and technology, but it isn't vehemently a policy-driven department as such. So I think they may want to do that. A couple of deputy positions to give to some smaller parties. But what they won't give away, I think Treasury, they're not going to give that away. The police, they don't want to give that away because that's a security. Defense, they won't want to give those away. It would be, and human settlement, I doubt if they would want to give that away because there's quite a lot of money that goes into human settlements. So it would be almost positions that do not have a direct bearing on the security cluster as such.
Very well. Thank you so much for joining us and expanding there. Independent political commentator Thabo Shole-Mashao.